Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So we have co-lead stories today as the Commanders have ruled out Jayden Daniels for the Monday Night Football contest against the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 8. That is of no surprise to any of us who have been following this situation very closely. I talked about it yesterday. I talked about it on the Commanders Kings program last night. That they're, after seeing what Dorrance Armstrong had happen to him, and not that impacted their decision to the umpteenth degree, but they factored that in too. Watching a guy struggle through a hamstring injury and then doing whatever Dorrance Armstrong ultimately did to his knee in the game against the Dallas Cowboys. But more importantly, they're always going to err on the side of caution when it comes to Jayden Daniels. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can take that risk with Dorrance Armstrong. You can take that risk with Deebo Samuel. You can take that risk with Will Harris. You can't take that risk with Jayden Daniels. He is a quarterback that utilizes his legs, and you can't put him out there assuming that he's going to be mindful of the fact that his hamstring is strained and that he needs to be careful and take it easy. If he's out there, he's going to play the way that he's always played the game of football. And you can't put him out there with limitations or restrictions, which is why I don't think he's going to play next week against Seattle either. And I think the first time him coming back comes into real play is Week 10 versus the Detroit Lions. But I've said that to you enough times already. I know a lot of you wanted to believe he was going to play in this game. You should know better by now. And I don't think he's playing next week either, which is why I came up with the plan I came up with last episode, which was expect him to be out for at least 2 weeks. In my mind, I'm going with 4, which will get us to the bye week, post-bye against the Denver Broncos, Week 13. That's what I'm doing in my mind until they tell me otherwise, right? But I said we had co-lead stories. So let's start with something that we talked about yesterday, right? We talked about yesterday that Ben Standing had a post that essentially said that both Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel would practice in full. That's the key. Not a limited, then don't practice. They were both slated to practice in full. Now, I think we're all at the point, especially with Terry, not necessarily Deebo, but more so Terry. I think we're at the point now where I'll believe it when I see it. He'll be back officially when he goes through a full week of practice, and then DQ tells us Terry's going to play with no injury designation. I think that's when we'll all believe that he's back because of everything we've gone through with him and Noah Brown at the receiver position. We're going to be overly cautious when it comes to what the status is for the upcoming game with Terry McLaurin. But this from Nikki Javala yesterday. Commanders coach Dan Quinn said on Sirius XM NFL radio earlier today that wide receivers Deebo Samuel, heel, and Terry McLaurin, quad, are both trending. And we've heard this with injured players all season long and guys that ultimately didn't play, that they're trending in the right direction. But that's not the part that makes me, feel more optimistic. Cautiously, I will say, but optimistic nonetheless. It's the next sentence. And the plan is to have full weeks of practice for both of them leading up to the Monday night game in Kansas City. That is the part that you should highlight and look at and say, okay, that's a little bit different. When DQ says something definitive that way, usually it comes to fruition. It's when he just says, hey, guys are trending in the right direction. That's when you should go, all right. I'll take it with a grain of salt, but I don't believe you. We've all seen the meme. I don't believe you. That's when you should probably have that approach. But when he says something like the plan is to have them out there, and again, the plans can change, right? I think both will hit the practice field on Thursday, and we'll see how Terry responds after a full day of practice, or maybe he's limited. I don't know. We don't know. And at this point, we shouldn't speculate. But now we know where Ben Standing got that information from. Because remember, I said to you yesterday, I watched the Dan Quinn press conference, and I watched those press conferences as close as anyone can watch those press conferences without actually having a part in those press conferences. And he said nothing of the sort. He made no mention of these guys practicing during the week. So I wanted to know where Ben got his information from. Now we know he got it from an XL NFL radio interview that Quinn did, where he basically said that both guys would practice this week in full, which would give them a shot to both play on Monday night, which with this news that we got, which is not a surprise, but it's still news nonetheless. And Jeremy Fowler was the one that broke this today. Jayden Daniels is out for this week with a low-grade hamstring strain, which is a good sign, right? The DQ told us that we dodged a bullet, that we got some good news, that it's a low-grade hamstring strain. So, again, hamstring strains, just like ankle sprains, vary in degrees, right? You can have a grade 1, you can have a grade 2, you can have a grade 3. So in my mind, I hear low grade, I'm thinking grade 1 hamstring strain, which is very insignificant. But for a guy the caliber of an athlete like Jayden Daniels, any hamstring strain of any kind is significant. But again, this is a low grade strain. So this means it's going to heal faster and that he'll be able to return to action faster. But again, you want to make sure, because we know hamstrings are tricky. All right. We know hamstrings are something that can have you hamstrung if not taken care of correctly. So I assume that they're going to be on the side of caution, right? They're going to err on the side of caution. They're going to be overly cautious, right? He may be able to play next week, but they're probably, just like last time, he probably could have played against Atlanta. They said another week won't kill us. We lost that game and it hurts. But in the grand scheme of things, one game versus Jayden Daniels' long-term health is way more important. So we'll bypass the one game, take the L against Atlanta, and hoping that we won't have to deal with any more issues with his knee. This is not a knee issue. This is a totally different, issue altogether on a different leg. So the two are not, they're not tied together, right? But it's a hamstring strain nonetheless. Not a long-term injury, but Commanders don't want to risk it, says Fowler. Again, all of that makes sense. It's what I've been telling you this entire time. Don't look for Jayden on Monday night. I don't think you're going to see him next week against Seattle either, personally. I wouldn't be shocked if he played next week, but I'd be more surprised if he did than he didn't. In my mind, he's not going to be realistically in the mix until the Detroit game. And even that isn't a guarantee that he'll be back for it, but it feels like 2 weeks at a bare minimum. We'll see what ultimately happens, but we can only take them one at a time. So we find ourselves here having this discussion about both the receivers and Jayden. Hopefully we'll get some good news on the receivers this week, but we know Jayden Daniels is going to be out. So I want to have this quick conversation about Marcus Mariota now, who is going to start his third game of the season. This will be his fourth game action of the year. He started the games against the Raiders and Falcons in weeks 3 and 4. And then he also had to come in the game when Jayden got injured against the Cowboys in week 7 last week. So this will be his fourth game action, his third start of the season. It's imperative that Marcus Mariota, look, this team is good enough. If we get the receivers back, this team is good enough to be competitive on Monday night. I don't see them winning that game, but they're good enough to be competitive and not go in there and get their doors blown off and embarrassed on Monday Night Football. They're good enough with Marcus Mariota at quarterback to be competitive. And when I say competitive, that doesn't mean we're going to lose by a field goal. It just means that this game isn't over midway through the third quarter. This game isn't over like it was on Sunday, right? That game was over after the pick 6 Marcus Mariota threw. And that happened sometime, late stages, mid stages, late stages of the third quarter. That game was over. The game was done. We knew we weren't coming back. This doesn't have to be that. This could be a game that, hey, we're down 2 scores, but we got the football with a chance to cut it to a 1-score lead. And we go down, we score. It's similar to the Falcons game, right? Where we were never in a position to actually take the lead. we were always down 2 scores, but we always had the ball down 2 scores with a chance to go score, and we usually did. The problem was the defense couldn't get a stop, and that's what's probably going to be the problem on Monday night, is that the offense may be able to move the football. They may not be consistent in moving the football, but they'll be able to move it a little bit. The problem is going to be that we can't stop Kansas City's offense from putting the football in the end zone. That's going to be the problem on Monday night, right? So here's the key for Mariota, and we'll talk more about this as we get closer and closer to the date of the game, and as we get into the specifics of the work week and things that the Commanders need to do to have a chance to be competitive. I don't even want to use the phrase win this week. Let's just be competitive. Let's start there, and then we can work our way towards possibly doing the improbable, what feels like the impossible. Marcus has to take care of the football. That's his number one goal in this game, is to take care of the football. Something he hasn't done this year, and something that he did tremendously well last year. In all of his appearances last year, he never turned the ball over. Took care of it, was highly efficient and effective. This year, he's turned the ball over in every single game he's appeared in. Had the fumble against the Raiders, had the interception versus the Falcons, threw the pick 6 versus Dallas. He has to take care of the football for this team to have a puncher's chance. He has to take care of the football. If he can do that, the Commanders will have a shot to be competitive. That's all I can tell you. But we'll see what happens. The big thing now is, can we get at least one, if not both of these receivers back for the game? If that happens, now we're really talking about a chance to be competitive. You get one of them back, it gives us a fighting chance to be competitive. You get both of them back, now we really should be competitive. Then we can start talking about maybe doing the impossible and the crazy. But you don't get any of these guys back, you're going to get embarrassed big time, because you're going to see a lot of what you've seen over the past 2 weeks from defenses being aggressive. Look, the Chiefs were going to be aggressive and play man coverage regardless. That's their MO. It's what they do. They're going to blitz. They're going to play tight man coverage. They're going to be aggressive. That's what they do under Steve Spagnuolo. Unlike the 2 teams previous that we've played in Chicago and Dallas, who weren't man-to-man coverage teams, who weren't teams that were aggressively blitzing, those teams altered the way they approached our game because of the lack of weaponry for the Commanders at the receiver position, which allowed them to be better against our run game, and it also allowed them to be aggressive against our receivers and attack our pass game. You get Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel back out there, and that will cease to exist. We will have better looks, or we'll have opportunities to take full advantage of them being over-aggressive. But you got to at least have those guys out there. It should open up the run game. It should give us more options in the pass game. It should open this offense up much more so than what we've seen the last 2 weeks when teams have gotten aggressive against the lack of weaponry we've been able to put on the field. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But it's official. Jayden Daniels out for the Week 8 contest versus the Kansas City Chiefs. That is not a surprise to any of us. And we should be seeing both our number 1 and number 2 wide receivers back on the practice field tomorrow when the team hits the practice field for the first time this week. We got our fingers crossed, but we'll believe it when we see it, right? I think that's the approach that everyone's taking at this point. We'll get a word from our sponsor, Sleeper, come back on the other side, and then we'll get to the big conversation of today's show, and that is the Brotherhood. The honeymoon's over. Let's talk about the Brotherhood, because it's going to be tested over the next month, and there's a real conversation that has to be had about the Brotherhood, about the culture here, about AP, DQ, the honeymoon phase that is now over, etc. We'll talk about all of that on the other side. Sleeper. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. play in fantasy leagues, and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Sleeper. All right, so let's proceed to end other news, where I want to talk about the honeymoon phase for this Commanders brass. It was so much fun last year, and we were blissful. We didn't know what we didn't know. This team was new. It was fresh. It was exciting. It was a breath of fresh air and a change from what we had become accustomed to. This is the shit that we're used to. Last year was the anomaly. Last year was the outlier. This is where we're comfortable as fans, unfortunately. We've been here before, way too many times to count. It's why a lot of you, while you're frustrated, you're not freaking out. You've been here. It's unfortunate because in the back of your mind, you're like, I knew this shit was going to happen. And I hate that you feel that way because I want you to not think that way anymore. You deserve, as a fan, to not be harboring those emotions from years past and bringing that baggage into this relationship with this new group. They deserve a fresh slate after what they did last year. You don't get a fresh slate like Ron Rivera asked for when you first get here and you ain't done shit. This group came here and in year one took us all the way to the NFC Championship, something none of us have seen, right? I've seen it. I've seen us win a Super Bowl, but I was five. Right? I had my little, helmet in my, starter, Mark Rippon jersey, running around the house, excited. But, the memories are faint. They're vague. For the vast majority of us, again, those of you of a older age, you've seen it all. You've experienced it all. You know what it's like to hoist the Lombardi, to see your team be dominant and the best in the league. We haven't seen that. For most of us, we haven't seen that. We haven't lived that, I should say. For myself, I haven't lived it. I've seen it. I haven't lived it, though. Last year was as close as we got to doing that. And so because of that, they built up equity with me. But unfortunately, 1 year doesn't erase 30 years of abuse. And for many of us, you wanted to put last year on this pedestal, and you wanted to assume and say, this is our new life. And that's what I've been telling you. This is our new life. This is our new existence. Throw all of that other baggage away. Take those shackles off. You can move forward. Here we are again, back in a very familiar space. So the honeymoon is officially over. And honestly, if we're keeping it a buck, the honeymoon phase officially ended when Adam Peters and Terry McLaurin engaged in systematically breaking down all of the goodwill that had been done. All of the momentum and the good juju that we had built from last season, they systematically took it apart, broke it down, and destroyed it. That's when the honeymoon phase officially was over. And you know what that also signaled for me? It signaled the first crack in the Brotherhood armor. DQ has said this numerous times, that you don't build a culture in 1 year. They're still building that culture. And I think a lot of us made the mistake last year of assuming that the culture was built last year. It was done. It was a finished product. They've got the Brotherhood. Anybody, anytime, anywhere. We had rallying cries. We had swag. We had built a brotherhood, a bond within that locker room that we could see. It was tangible. It was palpable. You could see it on the field. You could hear it in the voices of the players. and you saw the results play itself out on the field. There was a real change out in Ashburn. This year is different from last year. And DQ has said, look, we're still building the culture. And culture, you know, is something that sustains itself over time, right? The brotherhood, I believe, is something that you have to recreate every single year. And I could be wrong here. This is my vantage point of what the brotherhood is and what culture is and the difference between the two. And I think DQ is maybe kind of vaguely giving us the difference between the two, but here's how I interpret it. Maybe I'm wrong here. Culture is something that is embedded in the fabric and the DNA of what you represent and stand for. Culture is something that you set and you continue to work to set it, make sure that it stays set year in and year out. But when people come to your building, when people come to your team, this is the culture. This is how we get down, right? This is how we play. This is how we practice. This is how we prepare. That's culture, right? Brotherhood is different. Brotherhood is a bond, right? It's how we interact with one another. The lengths that we're willing to go for our fellow man, whether that's staying late to play ping pong or chop it up in the kitchen as we eat together, maybe have a gathering with our families outside of football, the bond that you have in the weight room together, chilling, chopping it up on the practice field, chopping it up in the locker room. That's the brotherhood, right? The bond between players, coaches, staff, etc. That changes every year because new players are going to be inserted into the mix every year. And so that's what I envision these two things being. So the culture that is set, or that they're continuing to try and set, it's being tested right now. The brotherhood is being tested right now, unlike it's ever been tested here before. And again, small sample size. DQ's only been here a year and a half. Adam Peters only been here a year and a half. So they had adversity last year, but you also had a 7-2 record when that adversity hit. You had a cushion that would allow you to absorb that blow and come out on the other side. Now you're working from a deficit. You're 3-4, and you're staring the most daunting stretch of football you faced in your year and a half here. More likely than not, over the next 3 weeks, you're playing 3 playoff teams, 2 with Super Bowl aspirations. It doesn't get any tougher than this. One of the things that I really look at in this situation is, what does it take to withstand adversity? When you get tested, DQ talked about this in his Monday presser. I thought it was a really good press conference because it spoke to what it's going to take mentally. Now, that's all lip service, is all talk. But you got to be able to lay out what this looks like for the players in order for them to then go out and execute and overcome this adversity. You got to paint the picture for these players so that they can see that light at the end of the tunnel. It's dark right now out in Ashburn. It's dark and hell is hot. But if you want them to see the light at the end of the tunnel, you got to paint the picture as a leader. You got to show them that there is. Remember, so a lot of you probably didn't watch Hard Knocks when the Detroit Lions were up there. This is why I love Dan Campbell. I'll just give you a little insight. I just thought about this and it makes so much sense. And it kind of speaks to what I'm talking about right now. Because I know a lot of you during the press conference on Monday, and I came back and I said, this is a really good press conference from DQ. You like, I don't want to hear that shit. It's just, that's all words. But Dan Campbell, when he first got to Detroit, he told his team in the second year, not the first year. The first year they were like, 3-13. They started the season off like 0-10 or something like that. Before they won their first game, they ended up like 3-13. The next year, they started the season off 0-6. And before their 7th game, he said, men, something to the effect of, I can't remember word for word, but he basically told them, we are on a ship and we're going to get to our destination. There's going to be a lot of different things that are going to try to stop us, weather, icebergs, whatever. There's a lot of different things that are going to be on this journey, but we're not going to let any of that stop us. There'll be bumps along the ride. There'll be adversity, but as long as we stick together, as long as we understand what it takes, as long as we're willing to put in the work, the grit, the determination, the grind, as long as we're willing to put that together and stay together, we'll find our way to the end destination, right? And when you see it, I didn't do it any justice. When you see him talking to his team, you understand why they'll run through a brick wall for this man, and why after starting out 0-10 his first year, 0-6 the second year, they never quit on him. They kept believing, and now you see the product, the fruits of their labor in Detroit. DQ has that same type of approach. I believe he can get these players to play at a much higher level than even we think they're capable of. We've seen this team. The difference between a team, say like Philadelphia, for instance, and Washington, is that the culture in Philadelphia isn't good, right? There's infighting, there's finger pointing, and maybe it's just one or two guys. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has been a cancer when he's been there every time, which is why they got rid of him twice. One time, maybe the contract wasn't right, but, they didn't have an issue saying, you know what, you can go. Go get your money somewhere else. You think that we're lowballing you, go ahead. Second time they brought him back, he was a huge reason why they won the Super Bowl, and they told him he had to go. They traded him to the Texans. A.J. Brown is disgruntled every year because their pass game sucks almost every year. And so that's not good culture when you have to deal with that. Brandon Graham last year threw fuel on a fire that was just barely burning. It was barely burning. It was about to go out. And he said, hey, there's a little bit of beef between A.J. Brown and our star quarterback, Jalen Hurts. And we were like, huh? This is a veteran, a trusted veteran in that locker room, and he's running his mouth? That's the culture that they have in Philadelphia. You know why they can overcome a culture that's a little bit toxic in that locker room? Talent. Winning cures all. It's the best, most effective and efficient deodorant there is. You spread some winning over some nasty locker room drama or toxicity, it's all good. We'll turn the page. But when you start losing, everything gets highlighted. Remember last year, Eagles fans wanted Nick Sirianni fired after the first 4 weeks of the season because they were losing. It doesn't take much to change the way fans perceive culture. Doesn't take much. Everything is under a microscope when you start losing. We won last year. There were a lot of signs that this kind of thing could happen to us. Last year there were. But we ignored them, and we were happy to. We were blissfully ignorant last year. Let me speak for myself. I was. Because we were winning. And we were just happy to be free. We were just happy to be free. Who am I kidding? Last year, we told ourselves it's house money. Anything that we get in year one, we were supposed to win 7 to 9 games. If we won anything more than 9 games, it was an added benefit. Like, we told ourselves all those things going into the season. So when we exceeded those expectations, it was great. But what you have to understand is this is why things are different for DQ, AP, and company. We don't have the talent to overcome bad culture, which I'm not insinuating that that exists here. We don't have the talent to have the brotherhood be fractured in any way, shape, or form, which is why I always tell you guys, you can't bring a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson into this locker room. You can't bring any malcontents into this locker room. Because our brotherhood can't be fractured in any way, shape, or form. We're not talented enough to have any distractions within the locker room. We're not talented enough to have the culture and the standard not be the standard in Washington. Things have to go well for us right now. You can start to bring in malcontents and guys that are super talented, but maybe a little rough around the edges. Once you've established your culture and your brotherhood is at a point where you can bring that in and you can still have the results you're looking for. We're not there yet. But here's what losing does. And it's a shame. I hate that we're here. I hate it here. Here's what losing does. Losing puts everything under a microscope. Because when you lose, fans want a scapegoat. They want something or someone that they can blame. It can't just be that we're an injured team and right now we don't have the depth to overcome it. That's not good enough. Because for most fans, whether it's fans of this team or other teams, that's a mere excuse. That's a reason, folks. That's a reason. And when people try to say, well, the Lions have injuries and the 49ers and the Bucks and those teams have been at it with their same general manager and the same head coach for more than 2 years. You can't turn around a franchise that was downtrodden in one of the worst, not just in the NFL, but in professional sports. You can't just turn that around in a year and a half's time. Sorry, folks. Newsflash, that's not how it works. And you can complain about, well, AP could have done this or could he have drafted better? Sure. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard the sound effects by now of Jadeveon Clowney talking about an offensive lineman on this team. He can't block. He can't block. He's not any good. I just haven't gotten into him enough yet. He can't block anybody. Who the hell do you think he's talking about? I'll give you one guess. You don't have to use your imagination. You can probably figure out who the hell he's talking about. We heard George Pickens talking shit to Marshawn Lattimore. He's cooked. And we know it. He knows it. This team probably knows it. That's the state of the roster right now. And so when you lose, you start analyzing every aspect of the organization, and none of it is out of bounds. So now fans got their pitchforks and their torches out, and they want a head on a stick. And so Terry and the holdout, Terry's public enemy number one for some people. Adam Peters, he's now under a microscope. When we got this guy here, we would have thrown him a parade. We would have thrown him a parade. We have ourselves a real general manager. We're excited. And then he puts together a roster where he literally gets rid of 60% of the roster that was here before he got here, which is unprecedented, by the way. We see this all the time when a new general manager comes in and cleans house. But he didn't just clean house. He Fresh Prince of Bel-Air this bitch. And brought guys in here, and they were looking around at an empty locker room like, damn, where did everybody go? He got rid of former first-round picks, second-round picks. If your feet weren't nailed to the ground here, he got rid of your ass. Brought in a bunch of guys that were, drafted one quarterback and turned this shit around in 1 year. And we would have thrown him a parade. Before he had done anything here, we were ready to throw him a parade, and we damn sure would have thrown him a parade after last year. The Marshawn Lattimore trade, traded for Laramie Tunsil this offseason, traded for Debo. All of a sudden now, a third of the fan base wants to bury this man, which is just crazy to me, just asinine. You can be critical of AP. He hasn't pressed every right button. No general manager in the history of general managers has. Okay. Has he made mistakes? Sure. That 2024 draft, that inaugural draft that was supposed to be the foundation and building block of this team moving forward, not looking so hot right now, right? You got Jayden Daniels. Everybody knows that that's a home run, smash, grand slam of a pick. You had 3 second-round picks. You even traded back with Philadelphia, gave them a stud to move back, pick up an additional pick. You had 3 cracks at second-rounders. And right now, I'm still riding with Mikey. But Johnny Newton doesn't feel like a second-round pick, and Ben Sinnott sure as hell doesn't feel like a second-round pick. You had 3 third-round picks. You gave one of those to Philadelphia in that trade, but you swapped that out for an additional second-round pick, so it was all good. But you got Luke McCaffrey and Brandon Coleman. Last year, felt like, okay, Brandon Coleman is going to be a part of this thing moving forward. Well, you fast forward to this year, Brandon Coleman is a healthy scratch every single week. Doesn't even feel like he's a part of this thing moving forward. Luke McCaffrey has stepped up, and he has a role here now. You move on to the 5th round. You drafted 2 guys in the 5th round last year. One's no longer here in Dominique Hampton. You tried an experiment. It failed. You moved on. No problems with that. Jordan McGee is the other. Like to see him play more. Hopefully, last week's snaps against Dallas is a sign of things to come that he'll get to play. And Javonte Jean-Baptiste was a 7th-round pick, and you're hoping that he gets more opportunities. He's got to stay healthy, something he hasn't been able to do in his first 2 seasons. We'll see if he can moving forward. You fast forward to the 2025 draft. 25 players because you traded for Marshawn Lattimore, you traded for Laramie Tunsil, and you traded for Deebo Samuel. Again, we only regret one of those trades. But hindsight's 2020. First-round pick, Josh Connolly Jr. I just told you what Jadeveon Clowney said. Use your imagination. Who the hell do you think he's talking about? Again, I think the young fella has a lot of room for growth. He's one of the youngest players in the NFL right now. He's only going to get better. How much better? I debate how much better. I don't think he's a, Pro Bowl type talent. I don't think he's ever going to be that. I don't. But can he be a serviceable right tackle? Can he be Morgan Moses? I think he can be that. I think he can be that. But again, to me, Morgan Moses was exactly what he was drafted to be, a 3rd-round tackle. I draft a 1st-round tackle, and I'm hoping that he's going to be a Pro Bowl player. That's my hope. Don't feel like I've already told you, I don't see that in Josh Connolly Jr. But we'll see. Love Trey Amos, the strongest pick of this past year's draft. Jalen Lane has already paid off a 4th-round dividends with the 90-yard punt return. He continues to get better as a receiver every week. There's drops here and there. They can utilize him better, I believe. But we already see the makings of how he can be very impactful. Kay Medrano, we all knew wasn't going to be impactful in year 1. We knew that. I told you guys, Kay Medrano will be this year's Dominique Hampton. That's what I told you. Like, he'll be active for 1 or 2 weeks. He's been active once this season. He won't be active very often. You won't see him. You'll forget about him maybe next year for him. And then 7th-round pick, Bill, we know he's got serious talent. Now they just got to get back to getting him opportunities to showcase that serious talent. So solid drafts, right? Last year's draft, I think we overrated it. I think we're starting to figure out that draft wasn't as good as we needed it to be. But you can, nitpick at his free agency moves. Ultimately, he did what he thought was the best in the interest of this team moving forward, knowing that you had some contracts that you're going to have to handle moving forward. So he tried to be somewhat frugal while still being aggressive and attacking success, knowing that this team played in the NFC Championship game. Hard to walk that tightrope, but he tried his best. And I actually thought he did a hell of a job putting us in a position to be hyper competitive this year. And then the injuries robbed us of any opportunity to see what this shit looks like. Now, I can't stress to you enough that the Terry and AP saga of the summer hurt this team. It hurt this team bad. There's no ifs, no ands, no buts about it. This team was hurt significantly. The Brotherhood was hurt significantly. You can't look players in the face and keep talking that business intersecting with the personal bullshit. If we're a Brotherhood and you claim that I'm one of the guys that's a badass competitor, a BMF, and someone that is one of the truly respected players in the locker room and in the building, then you need to get the damn deal done. That's on both sides. There's no winners in this shit. When the family argues, nobody wins. No one won this summer in that situation. And the whole team suffered because of it. But that's not the reason we sit here at 3-4. The injuries. Bad play. Because even after all the injuries, if Jayden Daniels doesn't throw an interception and doesn't fumble at the end of the Bears game, we're 4-3. This season feels different right now, but we're not. And so now you talk about the Brotherhood. DQ talked about the Brotherhood on Monday. And again, when you start losing, everything is in bounds. Nothing's out of bounds. So people are looking at AP funny and sideways now. I don't agree with it, but I understand. People are looking at DQ sideways. I don't agree with it, but I understand. Neither one of them are going anywhere anytime soon. So I'm not tripping about that. And I'm glad to know that there is some level of consistency here from the ownership group. And these guys are going to have an opportunity, you know, if this season goes off the rails, to figure this thing out. And really, injuries are a big part of the reason why this thing never had a chance to get off the ground the way that it should. But what you're going to ultimately see now is a true test of the Brotherhood that DQ has spoken about for the last year and a half. These guys are going to have to lean on one another. The staff is going to have to lean on one another. And collectively, they're going to have to come together. The staff and the players make some tough decisions, have some tough conversations. Look, Marshon Lattimore might be cooked. I use the word might loosely. He's not what he once was. He's a broken man. And I don't think anyone in that building is capable of putting Marshon Lattimore back together again. You may have to bench him in favor of Jonathan Jones just to see what Jonathan Jones can provide you with. And maybe he's asked to. Only one way to find out. That's a tough conversation with a veteran player that you really like, that's respected in the locker room, that tries hard. But at this point, he's hurting us more than he's helping us. Joe Witt Jr. Love the way he approaches the game from a mental standpoint. Love his no-nonsense attitude, coach of a son, right? Or son of a coach, rather. Love all of that. But the results are what they are. The defense wasn't good last year, and we excused that. Hey, he didn't have any talent. He made the best version of lemonade he could make with the lemons he was provided. They were rotten. The sugar wasn't any good. We get it. Well, they gave him better parts this year, and unfortunately, injuries have robbed him of all of his parts, but that's not why this defense stinks. It stinks because he's not putting guys in the best positions to succeed, and the guys that are on the field aren't producing at a high enough level. It's a combination of the two. It's not just Joe Witt Jr. It's not just the players. It's both. Tough conversations are going to have to be had and made, and decisions are going to have to be made based off of those conversations. We're going to see what this Brotherhood is really all about. You can't talk it. Now you got to walk it. You got to live it. Because this team can go one of two ways now. We are truly, and I've said this twice now, but I mean it this time. I mean it this time. You are truly at the crossroads of your season. This is the intersection of your season. You could go one of two ways. Either this thing can unravel completely and you can fall by the wayside and become one of the worst teams in the league, or at least in the conference. We're talking 6-11 type of season. This thing could go off the damn tracks. Or you can fight like hell, lean on this so-called brotherhood that you've talked about, and you can find a way to weather this storm. And it's a dark, nasty storm that feels like there's no end. Quarterback down again, more injuries, your best pass rusher done for the season. What's new? Kansas City Chiefs this week on a Monday night, short week turnaround, really good Seattle Seahawks team. Then the week after that, another massive test against another Super Bowl quality team in the Detroit Lions. Doesn't get much darker than that. So either you're going to fold like a cheap lawn chair, and that whole conversation about brotherhood and culture was just all that talk, or you're going to show the resolve of a team that believes in their head coach, believes in the message, believes in one another. You're going to find a way to band together, lean on that brotherhood, and in your most difficult times of adversity, this is when you find out the true test of who you are. I've talked to you already so many times about when shit's going well, it's easy. Anybody could do that. Anybody could do that. Same thing with being a fan. It's easy to be a fan when shit's going well and we're winning games. Oh, that's awesome. This is when the true test of your fandom comes into play. You can quit. Go watch the NBA. Go watch hockey. Go invest in the World Series. You can find other distractions. Come back when it's safe. And if that's your move, more power to you. I'm not here to criticize. We're not cut from the same cloth, though. We're not cut from the same cloth. We're going to find out in this time of adversity for this team, with this head coach who I believe has what it takes to lead these men through the darkest time of this season. It got dark fast. We were just celebrating, talking about National Bill Day after the Week 5 win versus the Chargers. The season had been salvaged. Here we go. We're going to beat the Bears. We're going to get to 4-2. We're going to have a chance to beat the Cowboys. We got a chance for first place. All of that shit was just 2.5 weeks ago. It got dark fast. And it's not getting any brighter outside with the Chiefs, the Seahawks, and the Lions as your next 3 opponents. Is the brotherhood going to fail you? Are you guys going to wilt, go quietly into the night meekly? Or are you guys going to fight, show some resistance, some backbone, show that this brotherhood isn't lip service, but it's a real thing? And are you going to go out here and show this fan base, more importantly, that no matter what the circumstances are, and we need to see this shit as fans of a team that's battered and bruised, we got a lot of scars. The one thing that I've always said about a DQ coach team is that they fight. They fight. They got their asses kicked on Sunday, and that fight left the building. I didn't see fight from this team on Sunday. Once Jayden Daniels, and I get it. We were, as fans, we were discouraged once Jayden got hurt. But Jayden got hurt against the Panthers last year, and I get it. That was the Panthers. It wasn't the Cowboys. This team didn't go into a shell. They scored 40 points and won the game 40-7. I get it. It's not the same. I'm aware. However, what's this team going to do? Are you going to fight? Are you going to show us that the brotherhood really, truly exists? Because you make it through this stretch here. Find a way to get through to the other side, whatever that looks like. A win over Kansas City, that probably won't happen. A win over Seattle, that's the most likely of the three. A win over Detroit. But you need to be competitive in all of these games, no matter what the outcome is. We can't see another game like Dallas. You find a way through this storm, this adversity. And I'm here to tell you guys that the Brotherhood not only is alive and well, but the culture here has been established, and it's truly a new day in Washington, because seasons like this, we've seen seasons like this. You need no further than to go back to 2023. We've seen seasons like this unravel right before our very eyes. And we've seen a lot of these. We've seen a lot of these seasons. I don't need to remind you of 2008, do I? Start the season off 6-2. What happened there? 2017. I don't need to tell you about how we've watched seasons unravel that started off well. This could just go in the long, long list and the big pile of failed seasons that had promised to begin and then unraveled, and there wasn't anybody there to stop the shiggity from flowing downhill. We're going to see what the Brotherhood is all about, what Adam Peters and Dan Quinn are all about. We're going to find out over the next 3 weeks. All right, let's get to, but one thing I can say, the honeymoon phase is officially over, and fans aren't cutting anybody any breaks, aren't trying to make any excuses for anyone. They want results. Fair or unfair, that's just the way it is. Let's get to the comment section, see what you guys have to say. Jacob Cortez, let me apologize to you for the last, 2 streams or so where you had a super chat right as the stream was ending. My apologies. He says, Lou, I tried to speak 5 playing into existence. I tried, LOL, but maybe we'll get Terry and Debo. You tried, but I knew that one wasn't happening, bro. You can will a receiver or an edge rusher, a tight end, a linebacker into existence. They're not doing that with their star quarterback. It just ain't happening. You tried, though. GT7, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, GT7 writes, Louie, I had to check myself earlier today. Shame on me for assuming we wouldn't have dumps in the journey of DQ and AP, are magicians that can magically wipe away 20 years of neglect and bad business. Let's relax, HTTC. Last year got us all caught up. I don't blame you for that. You got caught up. Just like most of us did. I got caught up. I ignored stop signs and other factors that I knew could easily creep up. And remember, I did videos this offseason that said, hey, these are things we can't rely on. Health was one of them. If you recall, I said we can't rely on the 4th downs. We can't rely on not punting. We can't rely on the 3rd down efficiency. I hope that we could do that again, right? That wasn't as extreme as the 4th downs and the health and all of that stuff. But these were things that I talked about. Like, these are things you can't assume we're going to have access to in 2025. We're just going to have to be better in other areas. Well, all those things are starting to happen, and you're seeing the end result. But we're in year 2 of a recalibration. And that's the thing that got lost in last year's success. This is year 2. We were ahead of schedule, and nobody wants to hear that, right? Nobody wants to hear that. Not when you had Super Bowl aspirations. No one wants to hear that you were ahead of schedule, because you weren't saying that when you were talking about trying to make a run deep into the playoffs. No one wants to hear that. So I get it, but that's the reality of the situation. This is still a roster that has a lot, and I mean a lot of work to do. And nothing screams that quite like that this is a year 2 of a recalibration, like the roster composition. Old players. We're the oldest roster in football. We don't have a ton of young talent. Some of that could be, blamed on AP. But ultimately, That's what year 2 of a recalibration looks like. When you gut the roster pretty much, start from the ground up, and you're still in the foundation building phase. So I told you, this type of start to the season, losing like this, like how we've started this season off, it brings everything back into focus. We might have lost sight of what reality was because we had 5. And I still believe if we just had a healthy 5, we still would be able to cover up some of the stench of everything. But you also got to put consistency around 5. And that's the one thing we haven't done with Jayden Daniels. If we haven't put consistency, and again, AP is to blame for some of that. Terry and AP have to share the blame of not putting consistency around him. Could AP have done more at the receiver position? You damn right he could have. And he has to shoulder some of that blame too. He has to shoulder some of that blame. He was way too comfortable with the Chris Moores and the Ja'Cory Brookses and the KJ Osbornes of the world in the summertime. He should have been able to see that Noah Brown, just the fact that Noah Brown has always been injured in his career, he should have had a contingency plan in place. He didn't do enough at receiver. That's on him. Jacob Cortez, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, sit lat and let the general cook, LOL. Y'all know good and well if we put the general out there, y'all gonna turn on that man faster. Then it'll make your eyes spin. You get knocked out like Mike Tyson. You can't put him out there. He's a walking PI. You got to try Jonathan Jones first. You got to try Jonathan Jones. Worst case scenario, you get to a point where of no return, you got to put Mikey back out there, and then you can put Noah in the slot, and you could probably get away with that. But you can't put Noah out wide. That's you're walking into PIs left and right. Can't put him out there. You think Marshawn doesn't look for the ball? Noah never looks for the football. Adam Russell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Adam writes, too early for the nicknames. Yeah. Get out of here with that. I know you were just kidding. Get out of here with that. Des Kid 80, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Des Kid writes, yo, what up, Lou? What's up? Maybe I missed it, but what are your thoughts on picking up Lockett? I'm all for it. I've said this already. You know, we beggars can't be choosers. We need help at the receiver position. We need help at the receiver position. They're not, I don't think they're going to do anything, though. AP's been stubborn this entire time with the receivers in particular, and it's hurt us. He's gone, bargain basement shopping, going to get guys like Treylon Burks and Robbie Anderson or Robbie Chosen instead of going out here and getting proven commodities that could have helped us, like a Kendrick Bourne, for instance. So I don't see them doing anything. Ray McLeod's going to the Giants. I'm pretty sure you've seen that already. I really don't think he's going to do anything, but I'm all in favor of signing Tyler Lockett or any veteran that has any type of success in this league. But at this point, I don't know what they're going to do. I personally don't think they're going to do anything. Paulie times 2. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, the honeymoon phase was really fun last year. I just hope this team gets it together soon. It was fun. But as we know, all good things must come to an end. A wise woman once told me that. All good things must come to an end. And that's over now. And so we got to figure out how we get this season back on track before it's too late. But I already told y'all, I already injected 2 vials of hopium. So I'm good. You give me back my 2 receivers on Monday night, and I'm ready to go fight for what's mine. That's my season. I'm ready to fight for my season. I can't speak for y'all. I can tell y'all this, though, and I'm really disappointed by this, but I get it. I understand. Clearly, I did 2 videos this week prior to this one. Episode 8.1, episode 8.2. Episode 8.1 was all about gloom and doom, season done. Episode 8.2 was all about hopium. Selling hope, it was titled. The gloom and doom episode has far outdone the Hopium Selling Hope episode. 2 times as many likes, over 2,000 more views. You have spoken. And I know haters are going to show up for the one that says season's over, but they don't like the video, though. They're not the ones liking the video. They just come in, talk their shit, and then leave. They come in, spark a match, set it ablaze. You guys fall for the trap, and then they get out of here. They don't like the video. So you guys have spoken. You guys think this shit is over. That's sad, but I get it. But if I got to fight by myself, and I've seen enough of y'all saying, hey, send me some of that hopium, we'll fight together. It's the same crew that was standing outside with Sam Howell. That's not a good example, but hey, if you're going to fight, you're going to fight. So I'm fighting for what's mine. I'm not quitting on this season in October. Now, November, different story. But let's just see. Let's just take it 1 week at a time, right? So anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. Brand new episode of the NFC East Super Friends tonight. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys then. Until the next time, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. You guys have a good one. Take care. Peace.